Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Professionals You Should Know. This show is about uncovering the journeys of professionals from different industries. And today, we have the delightful and informative Joya Echi, who is a sustainability consultant. Thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, what is it that you do?
So I'm a sustainability consultant.
Okay, what's that?
So we basically help businesses becoming more sustainable by, for example, reducing their environmental impact. And that can take so many shapes and forms depending on the industry. So I work, for example, at the moment I'm working on projects on uranium.
Uranium?
Okay. That's one.
Okay.
Yeah, so because uranium can be very obviously toxic. That's probably not the right word, but can be very damaging if not handled correctly. But at the same time, once you've used it for energy, renewable energy, for example, you need to handle it responsibly. But that doesn't have to be waste. So you can do something to it so that you can put it back into the loop or use it for secondary processes.
So what would you use uranium for?
So renewable energy, because it has, it has some energy to it. And so if you put it into a reactor, so under specific conditions, it can produce electricity. Because of its elements, which are very heavy, I think, and radioactive. So when you hear about radioactivity, uranium is a radioactive material.
Oh, because I thought renewable energy would be like wind or solar.
Yeah,
and uranium.
So that is also. So this is nuclear energy, which is technically renewable because, like let's say one rod of uranium can last years and years and years. So yeah, it's just about handling it responsibly. And then you have wind, it's renewable. You have sunlight and heat or geothermal from the middle of the earth.
That's cool.
But yeah,
that's cool.
That's
so you said you're on other projects as well?
Yeah.
So what's another project that you're on?
So one is about understanding the environmental impact of digital advertising. So, your YouTube ads at the beginning of a video, or your adverts. For example, if you searched if you were on a website looking for a pair of shoes, then you'll see that that ad popping up in different web pages. And so with this company, we're trying to understand how the environmental impact of these different types of adverts. So it's all about understanding the infrastructure, how the ads are placed. There's some bidding involved. There's some servers talking to each other. So that's another one.
Okay.
I think the next one will be digital art.
Okay.
I don't know anything about yet. I'll let you know. It involves crypto.
Okay.
Non-fungible tokens.
Okay, and all that stuff, because I'm into crypto as well. I know a little bit. Yeah. But no, going back to the renewable energy. So, why did you want to go into that? Like, what's your journey into getting into where you are now, consulting for renewable energy?
Yes. So where do I start?
What's your background? Because I know what's your background?
Yeah. So I studied material science and engineering at university.
Wow. So what's that?
So it's about understanding the structure, the properties of materials. Could be metals, could be polymers, so plastics. It could be ceramics, so like clay. And it's about understanding the structure of these materials and see how they behave and what their properties are. And obviously in engineering everything is material, right? Everything is tangible. So we looked at the materials of airplanes, materials of prosthetics, for example, which you might be interested in. There's also some dentistry involved. So basically it's anything that is material that we study.
Okay. And then what is that for? Is that to study them to know a better use of them, or is it just to study them?
Well, that would be a bit pointless.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so we so it's to manipulate them at times.
Okay.
For example, if you want to make lighter planes,
Yes.
you can combine a metal and a plastic in a very, very smart way.
Okay.
Treat it, and so you have a very strong but also light material. Then so yeah, it depends on what you're looking for. Sometimes you discover by accident that material that does one thing in under specific circumstances, and then you want to manipulate it or find ways to apply it to a random field that you're probably studying. And yeah, so there's lots of research behind it. Yeah, it's a bit different from mechanical because you don't think about the forces and the stresses, but you think more about the material itself and the microstructures and the atoms. So
well, that's interesting. And then after that, did you said about something about engineering as well? So
yeah,
is that what
because at the end of the day, we are part of the engineering department.
Right.
It's just a different perspective to engineering.
Right. Okay.
Compared to the more traditional, for example, mechanical and aerospace, medical, biomedical. Because it looks at materials across all industries. At the end of the day, engineers have to work together.
Right.
Engineers from different backgrounds. But yeah, this is our approach. Yeah, we'll start from the materials.
Oh, that's interesting. So you know, like all the materials on
technically. Yeah. If you ask me what something is, maybe I can tell you. But I don't know everything.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your like degree, or was it more like theory or was it practical? How did it work?
I would say it was 50-50.
Okay.
So for example, in first year we were working in groups, rotating groups, and one of the projects was to build a boat.
You built a boat?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like what, a boat from scratch?
Like a small boat.
And what was
could, swim.
Oh, and you had to find like loads of different materials that makes it more efficient, or what happened?
So yeah, I think if I remember correctly, we were given a frame, a hull, I think, yeah. It was specific weight and dimensions, and so we had to propel the boat.
Right.
And we couldn't use any electricity, any battery. So it had to be entirely mechanical. So you could only have moving parts, but no energy. So I remember that we had to design and cut and basically build the wheels with pieces of plastic. Then we had some people used a mouse trap because the energy in a mouse trap is called elastic.
Right.
And yeah, you don't need any energy, right? It's just mechanical and it's elastic. I can't remember what other people used. You could use a air balloon as well, as long as it was mechanical. And then we had a race. Different groups built different prototypes. Yeah. So we had a race by the canal, our uni, our campus, and our team won. So that was fun.
That's interesting. So it's quite really hands-on, really practical.
Yeah. There's design involved as well because you could use different materials. They could have. You have to be careful with the weight of the materials, the density, the structure, etc. And so that was just one way to teach us the engineering design process.
Do you do any designing or structure building now?
So we did at uni. We did design modules.
Right.
Yes.
But do you do any currently at the moment?
Now I think there's so many different types of design, which I love because it's creative.
Right.
For example, now I'm developing a tool on Excel. So it has a dashboard, has an entry data portal. Right. It has some background calculations.
Right.
And obviously, especially for the campaign entry tab, you need to make it easy to use and very intuitive. So there's some design concepts going on there. Right. Yeah.
But in terms of like both.
Practical?
Yeah, practically. Yeah, practical.
Yeah, haven't done these in a while. I did maybe in my internships and in uni, but in my first job, yes, we did. It wasn't too much design. It was more chemical testing and so on.
Okay.
But design is also about designing an experiment. So it's planning an experiment. There's so many types of design. It's not just a drawing on a piece of paper. There's software design. There's a user interface. So how you see a website. There's lots of design, and you need coding for that. So any design I'd love to do. There's fashion design.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. All right. One story that reinforced that this is kind of like the industry that you want to be in. The material side.
So it's more of a it's more about, it's not really a story, but it's more about what I felt attracted to. So I've always enjoyed mathematics and sciences in school, but at the same time, because of the education that I had, so in Italy you don't really pick your subject.
Oh, so you're based in Italy?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I went to high school there. Okay. So you never really get to pick. You can pick your high school, so you can go to a scientific high school, but overall you still have to study Latin, philosophy, art, geography, all the subjects.
Okay. Yeah.
And also all the sciences.
Is that like GCSEs as I think we'll call it here, GCSEs?
Yeah, okay. And also A levels.
And A levels as
one
well.
School.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So I think that never made me has always kept me, open to different subjects. And also I didn't want to pick one specific science. I know that in A levels, if you want to do engineering, you have to pick a few, mostly sciences. But yeah, maybe that's the explanation that I gave myself, I think, to apply for this subject at uni. And actually, I also, for that at that university that I went to, I initially applied for sustainable energy engineering.
Wow.
But then I was a bit scared of the physics. Some heavy physics going on. Right. So I went for material science, which I don't regret at all. Okay. But yeah, that's a bit of the journey.
And is there a kind of a misconception in your role? So I don't know. It could be like it's mostly heavily men, or is there any misconception that you would say?
So in terms of engineering, it's it's probably something that women shouldn't go for, or the majority is men, very likely, which is down to mostly confidence, because if you look at statistics about girls and boys in school and who performs best in sciences and maths, actually at some point at the beginning girls perform best, but what makes it change, it's the lack of confidence that girls are more subjected to because of societal structures and what your parents tell you and so on. So yeah, maybe that's the misconception. But again, in my degree, we were 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because it was all sciences, whereas mechanical, aerospace is very much seen as a male-dominated industry, and it still is. But yeah, I think I was lucky that way. Yeah, and sustainability is actually more women than men.
Why is that? Why do you think that is, in your opinion?
Oh, I wanted to write an article about this.
Okay, that's interesting. Go ahead.
I don't know if it will get published, but it's to do. The main reason is that so women tend to have more feminine traits. So at least stereotypically, so they tend to care more about children. It's probably due to their hormones. I don't know. Maybe it's just society, but that makes it easy for women to care about the planet. Whereas men, I've read something that they are afraid.
Easy now.
No, don't take it personally.
No way.
So men, they they feel like their masculinity is undermined.
Right.
For example, when they carry reusable bags to the store.
Right. Okay.
So that's just
okay.
one reason.
I see.
And so yeah.
Okay. And in your field or in your profession, is there anyone that you feel that appreciates you the most? It could be like government, people, your colleagues. Is there anyone that says, you know what, you're doing a really good job?
I think, more colleagues and friends.
Right.
Because obviously everyone is now aware of sustainability or engineering. And so they really, they appreciate the contribution that I give. And also colleagues, they know what you're doing.
Right.
The government, I'm not sure, because I don't know, maybe it's from an engineering perspective, I've never really felt truly in contact with the government,
right.
if that makes sense.
What about like funds that they normally give out, because they see that this is where the world is changing too, so they're giving probably more funds out, they're doing more things for in that kind of nature?
Yes, there's definitely a push for to get more kids into science and STEM subjects, for sure. So yeah, you're right. And there are so many initiatives and activities that I also participated to or run
That's nice.
in terms of for this. But maybe I should explain the link between engineering and sustainability. I don't know.
Go.
I feel like. So now I'm a sustainability consultant, right? So, and the approach that I use is actually quite is well linked to what I studied, right? Because what I do is called life cycle assessment. It can be applied to products or services. So it's about looking at a product, let's say this glass bottle, see how it's made, basically. Where are the materials from? How is the glass made? How is it assembled? What processes does it go through? How is it distributed, filled up with water? What happens when you drink the water to the bottle? How is it disposed of? And so basically this approach was really what helped me getting into sustainability. I'm not saying that I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, but you need that technical knowledge and thinking in order to use this process within sustainability.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because again, it's all about efficient use of products or efficient use of materials.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Could be services as well.
Yeah.
But mostly products.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna go to a rapid round. All right. So it's basically, I'll ask you 3 questions. So it's either a yes or no, or you pick a choice.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So our first question is, which material, in your opinion, do you think is more destructive to the earth?
Destructive.
Yeah. Concrete or plastic?
I'm gonna say plastic, but it's really about how you use it.
Okay. All right. So our second question is, which energy source do you think is more efficient to power a house? Wind or solar?
I would say solar. This is easier to harvest because the sun shines on your
all the
house.
time.
Whereas
But what about wind? Wind's all around.
But wind, you get blocked by other buildings.
Right.
I think so. It's just harder to harvest. Indeed, you see wind turbines. They're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
They are in the middle of the sea.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I think that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay. So for our last question, which activity do you feel produces the lowest amount of carbon? Rowing or salsa?
Salsa. I would say rowing.
Okay.
But then do you take into account the materials for the boat?
Right. Okay.
So,
Rowan? So, for our final questions, what do you think your biggest contribution is in your industry to helping society?
Well, we're saving the planet.
How? Like, because of just knowing the materials, knowing how they...
Because at least in my current role, I'm a consultant. So businesses come to us, businesses come to us to start from somewhere, because they could address their business travel, they could address the products that they make. And so we have different ways to understand the environmental impact that they produce in many different ways, and then find solutions to reduce it. So I think because of we're trying to slow down climate change. I think that's a pretty good contribution.
That's a massive contribution.
You're all welcome.
Another question: do you see your profession progressing in any way? Like, I don't know, more responsibilities, more status. Do you see it progressing in any way?
Yes, I do. Because as I'm growing in my role, I'll have more responsibilities, and probably work with even bigger companies that obviously have more control on what happens in the world. And so by working with these companies, I'll have more impact on their sustainability. So
you're saying about policy,
maybe policy making.
Yeah,
maybe
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, as a consultant, I'm not sure how much I can get involved into politics.
Okay. But again, you're changing kind of the world structure, how people are using certain things. So I guess that would be essential. Yeah, that's true. And then I could always, because we also run workshops, so there's lots of education going on, because sustainability looks so different to depending on the industry that you're in. I guess towards educating and all of that. Right, because that's also going to increase the impact that I have on society. Because again, even I don't know, there's, I think, this agenda about by 2030 that we're all going to be more sustainable. Everything's going to be run on renewables. Like, I think even Boris was talking about promoting more wind. So it will be quite interesting.
Yeah, it's a cycle. So the more the government backs us into doing this, the more industries will be interested. So the more work we will have. And it's a bit of a chain reaction, and it's nice that it's going faster now, because the deadline is very close.
Yeah, it's more of a push on it just to reduce our carbon print.
Absolutely.
Do you practice sustainability in your household?
I try as much as I can. But for example, you go to the supermarket, everything is wrapped in plastic, and sometimes there's a lot of gray areas. Also, intersectionality is really important when it comes to sustainability, because
what's that?
So intersectionality, so it's looking at a problem. I'd say from different angles and taking into account the culture of the people, the age, the gender, and everything. For example, in the States, there are food deserts where basically people don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So you could go and tell them, you should be more sustainable. But actually the only food that they have access to is wrapped in plastic and processed. So there's a lot of thinking behind this. You can't just go and tell people do this. You need to develop tailored solutions for sure. I like that. Yeah, that's cool. So
okay. And do you think anything is missing from your profession?
Probably education. Yeah, because when I say sustainability, people think, no offense, renewable energy. Which is a big part. It's a huge part. And yeah, and it's not just that. It's not just lifestyle. It's not just being vegan.
Right.
It's also reducing your. It's also choosing the train instead of a plane. But at the same time,
Okay.
the most control is owned by bigger companies that we know the name of, but we have no idea of the impact that they have.
Right.
For example, Unilever,
Right.
they own so many brands for cleaning products, foods, and so yeah, it's about understanding that that's a big part of why we are in this situation.
Right. And you said the difference between sustainability and renewables.
There isn't a difference.
Okay.
Sustainability is about making sure that the resources that we have available don't run out.
Right.
And it's about using them responsibly.
Right.
So that's why you have renewable energy,
Right.
because the sun is a renewable source of energy.
Yeah.
So is wind, so is water.
Yeah.
But for example, oil,
Yeah.
it's not. It's finite. We're running out, which is why plastic is also an issue. We're running out of oil.
Okay.
And also we're producing plastic that we use once and we throw away.
Right. So what, the oil meet the plastic?
Yeah, plastic comes from oil.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And oil comes from basically animals that died thousands and thousands of maybe million years ago.
Okay.
They were buried in the earth.
Yeah.
They stayed there for a long time with no oxygen, light.
Right.
And that's why we have oil.
So when that runs out, then...
Exactly.
So your job is to try to make sure that all of these materials or products will go.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah, so we're trying to reduce the environmental impact. It can be by, for example, having supply chains that are more local, so that when you're producing a phone, there's so many materials coming from all parts of the world, and so at the same time, these phones don't last very long, and these phones are becoming disposable. So there's so many angles. It's also about educating consumers that a phone it's rare. The materials are in there are rare. Right. And I'm not even working on phones at the moment. It's just like a way to explain. And again, because we're moving towards more digital, we're already using laptops and phones for everything. Yeah. It's about understanding, what is the impact? Because all the emails that you send, all the videos that you stream are coming from maybe a source. They go into the internet and data centers, and these consume a lot of energy. They consume electricity. So it's hard to get your head around it because every problem is different and requires a different solution. But yeah, it's about making sure that we can survive on this earth and that we have all everything that we need and it doesn't run out. And we don't damage it.
Yeah, that's a very, very challenging job. And very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah. And I love it because it can be used for any industry. Yeah. Every industry needs to reduce their impact. Yeah. So, I'm also really interested into tech. Okay. I had some experience in tech, different types. So if I get to reduce the impact of tech.
So, because I know it comes off subject, but I know like there's loads of things around about, I don't know, the crypto space and how they use an enormous amount of energy, and they're trying to build new crypto. So is that something that tech-wise that you're into, or? Yeah,
our company will start working on this. Okay. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not using energy and resources. Some people might think, oh, why do you care about that? But actually we're going towards that direction, so we might as well get prepared. We, at least this time for that specific industry, we're prepared, whereas for other industries maybe I don't know, clothing. We were not prepared. We knew, but we didn't do anything about it. And we're also working at the company on fast fashion, for example.
Right. What, to stop, to reduce the amount of fast fashion?
Yeah. To help companies. Again, the concept of fast fashion is it's not sustainable in itself, right?
Right, yeah.
It's very hard to make it sustainable,
Right.
but we're helping companies, maybe finding ways to offset. So maybe like, maybe they pollute on one side, but then they plant trees, for example.
Okay.
There are
So
different ways to go about.
So to wrap things up, the show is called The Professionals You Should Know. Is there any other profession that you think we should all know?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say a coder.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
They do some magic and then they make things happen.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to have to reach out to one of them. I
good
might be
luck.
on your radar. It's been a pleasure having you here, and
Same
I've
here.
learned quite a bit. So.
Oh, I'm glad.
All right, thank you.
glad.
Thank
It's
you
really
for coming.
fun. Thank you
Yeah,
for having
same.
me.
Anytime, it's a pleasure. Thank you. And hope to see you all soon.